Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second official interview with future President Seth Fer. I'm Thom Lauzon, Mayor of Barrie, and I'm honored to be here today. Now, please welcome Seth Fer.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. How you doing, Seth?
Got you this nice hat.
This is
I
awesome.
can sign it for you after if
Fewer
you'd like.
problems, more solutions.
Yeah,
Makes for a better world, wouldn't
yeah,
it? That's fantastic.
yeah.
Awesome.
And
Thank
I've
you.
I've been told that you watched the first interview, right?
I did.
Beautiful.
I
So
thought you did a
yep.
great job.
Thank you. Alrighty.
So I got to ask you. So, future president.
Yeah.
I mean, most people your age are, maybe thinking about high school, maybe thinking about what they're doing this weekend, maybe thinking
Yeah.
about where they're going to go to college, and you want to be president.
I do.
And I think it's awesome. I'm not being,
Hmm.
not
Yeah.
blowing smoke up
Yeah.
your rear.
Yep.
I think it's awesome. so, these, so, um, I've got, so these are great questions, by the way. So some of them are a little tough. So if you
I
want
can
to take
handle
a
it. I
pat,
can
you can
handle it.
handle it. Okay, so what would you say to voters who are skeptical about your ability to lead given your age?
Well, that's a fair point. Most of the presidents in the past have been pretty much older, But by the year 2048, which is pretty far away right now, we're only in 2025. I'll definitely have more experience. I want to go to law school, be a lawyer, and so I'll definitely have more experience by then.
Hmm.
So hopefully, if I am qualified, then I would definitely run for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find it? So this question wasn't in there,
Hmm.
but honestly, it's I watched President Bush,
Hmm.
who was one of my favorite
Yep.
presidents, President Obama, who was
Yep.
also one of my favorite presidents,
Hmm.
um, and the office of the presidency ages people. I
Does.
mean, it really does. It's
It
got to be
does.
the weight of the office.
Yeah.
You're under constant stress. And then I look at some of the candidates, with all due respect to President Biden and President Trump,
Hmm.
it's not a jab, it's not being disrespectful. I'm 64 years old. I got up this morning at 4:15
Hmm.
and started my day. I'm a tax accountant by profession, so
Hmm.
the days are long. But I can tell you, it's harder for me to work a 12 or 14-hour day at 64
Yeah.
than it was when I was 55 or when I was 50.
Yeah.
And I think about, okay, could I work a 14-hour day when I'm 75?
Yeah.
I don't think I can.
Yeah.
I don't, well, if I could, my last 4 hours wouldn't be very
Yeah.
productive.
I understand.
So, what do you have to say about that? About the age of our, there seems to be this trend that we're electing very old presidents.
We are. I'm only going to be 38 if I'm elected, which is younger than the current youngest president. So I'll definitely be younger and more alert, you could say.
Hmm.
And I definitely won't be, let's say, tired. And I still will age. Everyone ages, but I won't age as much necessarily in terms of like brain
Yeah.
and like forgetting things that much. You
Hmm.
know?
I mean, it it was the Biden presidency towards the end
Oh
was
yeah,
at times difficult difficult to watch.
yeah, yeah,
It
definitely.
really was. Yeah. So let's move on. So what will you do to make sure that younger generations have a voice in policymaking going forward?
Well, first of all, I will be younger, obviously, so I feel like I can speak pretty well for the younger generations. But we also want to have a website where people can enter their own ideas for policies, and we'll have a team review that and pass the good ones on to me, so I can see what more people want and get stuff done according to that. You know?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, boy, this is this is you got a lot. What is the biggest issue with current U.S. foreign policy, and how would you change it?
Um. So foreign policy, I think one of the biggest issues with that is every president kind of decides for themselves what they would like, and they don't usually go according to what the last president did. I think you probably know that President Trump just backed out of the Paris Climate Agreement.
Hmm.
So I think we need to get specific policies with other countries and really buckle down on them and make sure that they're not changed for a while.
Hmm. And how would you balance strengthening the military with being fiscally responsible? Military, as
Yeah.
you likely know, is a huge percentage of our United States of our budget
Yeah.
nationally. So how would you balance keeping our military strong with being fiscally responsible?
Well, right now I think our military is pretty strong, but what I would like to see in the future is a lot more kind of like AI type stuff, because I think you probably know that how they killed the leader of ISIS, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, was with robots because they didn't want to risk our troops getting hurt, obviously because he had that vest. So I think more stuff like that would be helpful to us,
Hmm.
really a lot.
And what would you do? So, we talked about youth a little bit.
Hmm.
What would you do about the spread of misinformation? Especially on
Yeah.
social media. It
Oh yeah.
seems like we're constantly bombarded,
Hmm.
through social media, and now AI is
Yeah.
taking a bigger role in that.
Yeah.
So it looks like
Yeah.
the bombardment and just the risk of a
Yeah.
lot of misinformation reaching people is pretty high. So what would you do about that?
AI definitely has its upsides and its downsides, especially on social media. I would like to see more AI fact checkers, like what they did on X, formerly known as Twitter. They also had people who could fact check stuff for
Hmm.
specific news, because obviously random people can put whatever they want out there, but no one's gonna take the time to fact check what like people like that do. But for official news sources, I think we should have like either AI or real people fact checking everything,
Hmm.
especially on online.
So social media in general.
Hmm.
Now, it's interesting because, given your age,
Hmm.
you've grown up with cell phones.
Yeah.
You've grown up with social media. It's been a part of your entire life.
Yeah.
And then you got people like me
Yep.
and mom and dad
Yep.
who didn't grow up with social media.
Hmm.
We grew up with a telephone in our kitchen and
Carrying a
we'd call
pager.
it and we'd call our friends and we'd all arrange for a time to meet up.
Yeah.
And once we were away from the house, once we were on our bikes and away from the house for the day,
Hmm.
there really wasn't any way for our parents to reach us,
Yeah.
except and our parents they kind of got used to giving us a lot of independence
Was a safer
because
time back then, definitely.
it was. So
Yeah.
any comment on that? Like, I mean, social media kind of
Yeah.
good. I think I still call it an experiment.
Yeah.
Good thing,
Yeah.
bad thing.
I think it's great. Obviously there's a lot of location trackers now. I have an app called Life 360 where you can track like your friends and family just to make sure they're like okay. But yeah, like Life 360, just stuff like that is great. And the world definitely is more dangerous than it was probably when you were growing up, and like my parents were growing up. So we have to combat that.
Hmm. So, how would you handle the rise of, uh, and it can be any global power,
Hmm.
but China, for example? How would you handle the rise of global power in places like China?
Well,
But it could be anywhere.
that's a big one. That's a big one. Definitely making the U.S. more self-sufficient, I would say, so we don't require them to help us. Definitely, we need to keep going at with like military, strengthening our military, strengthening strengthening the United States by itself to make sure we don't need them for like anything.
Hmm. And what role should the government have in regulating big companies, especially
Mm,
technology companies, technology giants?
yeah. Well, like I said, the AI like fact checkers, that's great for all of the social media type stuff. But in terms of other technology, I think I like technology a lot, me personally, and it can definitely help us.
Hmm.
So I think it's great in that aspect.
But how should they regulate? I mean, obviously we have laws
Regulate
in the
it,
United
yeah.
States against monopolies.
Hmm.
Um, But sometimes it almost seems counterintuitive.
Uh huh.
When a company is really good, they're really
Hmm.
good at what they do. That company grew on a level playing field,
Hmm.
but they just happen to be exceptional. And then all of a sudden, we point at them and say, "You're a little too exceptional."
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Uh, well, it really like for TikTok as an example, they tried to ban TikTok because China was stealing our data. But in terms of like just TikTok alone and other social medias, the majority of people that use that is children. So I don't know. It feels weird having China have children's data because I feel like they're not going to really like have much to do with just like kids.
Hmm.
They're not going
Yep,
to have much to do with that data.
it makes sense.
Yeah.
And what changes would you make to reduce the influence of money in politics?
Ooh, I would definitely make all of the political like candidates spending records public to make sure there's no influx of money from outside places. Um, and like I know money it depends on it's less than sorry, I'm kind of struggling with this one a little bit,
Hmm.
but people like Kamala Harris,
Well,
she
everybody
spent
struggles with it,
oh
Seth.
well yeah
So
yeah yeah
you're.
yeah but they spend a huge chunk of money on like getting like celebrity endorsements and stuff like that, and
Hmm.
after all of that money they still lost the presidential race. So yeah, money is always going to be a giant it's going to affect it a lot, but I think that it really comes down to just policies. That's the brass line, you know.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, we we talk about that one a lot.
Hmm.
The influence, because let's face it, I mean, money can influence politics,
Yeah.
but people also have the right to free speech.
Yep.
So that's why we have PACs,
Hmm.
and PACs obviously can't communicate, they can't coordinate with the candidate. But the basis behind a PAC is saying,
Yeah.
hey, look, if Elon Musk wants to spend $1 billion promoting President Trump, as long as he's not, well, it's his right as an American. He has a right to
Yeah.
free speech, and he
Yeah.
has a right to spend his own money.
Yeah.
Um, but then again, when you get somebody like Elon Musk who can spend $1 billion,
I think you probably,
or
I don't know if you saw that video of him handing out those $1 million checks.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. That's where you're like, okay, maybe we need to put a little cap on
Yeah,
that.
it probably should be
Maybe,
regulated.
maybe we should try to level the billionaire playing field, and maybe we should cap tax at a certain dollar amount. How
Yeah.
how would you feel about that?
That would be good. Definitely in terms of Elon Musk, having him on your side, automatically helps you out a lot, just considering he's one of the richest people in the world. But he has the power just to hand out these $1 million checks. It definitely is influencing people to go on that side.
Hmm.
So those things should be capped, I think.
So these, and if you want to pass in any of these questions, go ahead,
Oh
because
yeah.
man, some of them I wouldn't want to be asked some of these questions.
Yep.
Uh,
I'll do my
how
best.
would you help, or what would you say to workers who are losing jobs due to automation and AI?
Oof. That is a tough one. Um, they can find other jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty simple. The world is gonna keep evolving, and AI is only gonna get stronger as time progresses. So, for certain jobs, they are gonna get ruled out eventually. Um, so people have to adapt with AI and come up with more jobs, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
because that one's a tough one.
Yeah, well, it is, and
Yeah.
especially in this market where we live in Vermont, people are
Hmm.
constantly saying we don't have enough workers, we don't
Yeah.
have enough workers,
Yeah.
but a lot of the workers, a lot of the jobs that are available are construction jobs, more physical type
Yeah. AI
jobs.
can't really help with that at
Yeah,
all.
and we have an aging population,
Yeah.
so it's kind of
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
mean, in Vermont, that question is doubly hard in Vermont.
Yeah.
So speaking of doubly hard, so what would be your plan for addressing mental health issues at the statewide level, at the national level?
First, let me just say, I think most therapists are a scam, just in my personal opinion. I know they are very helpful for other people,
Hmm.
but in terms of therapists, for me, they've never worked. It's more helpful just to like tell a friend or talk to a friend. And if you don't have a friend or a family member to talk to, that's where therapists come in. But I think therapists just together are kind of scams,
Hmm.
in just my opinion. So I would definitely recommend talking to a friend or a family member first.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So you think therapists are kind of, oh, there are no therapists
Yep.
watching?
Yep.
Well, I mean, I think therapists. I mean, I'll play a little devil's advocate here. I think sometimes um, people aren't comfortable talking to their friends, or they're not comfortable talking to
Yeah.
their family, and
Yep.
maybe they need that objective, person
Yeah.
to sort of just bounce things off.
Yeah.
I mean, you, how would you work that into your thought process?
Definitely, and it depends on it kind of depends on your religion. Also, you can talk to a pastor
Hmm.
for confessions or stuff like that. I want to stay as far away from therapists as I can because I don't like them. I don't like them.
Fair enough.
I don't like them.
If you could change one law or amendment,
Ooh,
what would you change and why?
22nd Amendment. You know what that is? Probably.
22nd? I do not.
That is the amendment that limits presidents to 2 terms. I want to make it three. I want to make it three because I think if you're doing a good job, then you should be able to be elected more than just 2 terms.
But it's interesting, we were just talking
Yeah.
about the age of our
Yeah.
of our current and not so current,
Yep.
presidents.
Yep.
Um, yeah, but I don't think 3 terms would necessarily be a bad thing. How do you feel about term limitations on senators and representatives?
Actually, if you look in here, I did have that in one of my policies. I would like to make a limit to senators.
I agree.
Obviously, if
What
you're
what
doing a
would you
good
think?
job,
I mean,
I
it's a 6-year
yeah,
term.
yeah,
3?
yeah,
That's
probably.
18 years.
Yeah, it's good enough for them. I mean, obviously, like as mayor, you've been doing a great job, so we don't need to get you out of here anytime soon. But for other people that maybe aren't doing such a good job or corrupt, we need to phase them out eventually.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I did run a competitive race this time. I was
Yeah.
reelected in 2024.
Yep.
That was a competitive race.
Yeah.
As mayor, my first competitive race was in 2006.
Yep.
And then I ran 5 times unopposed.
Mhm.
And even I think the last 2 races,
Mhm.
Lucas Herring, who succeeded me as mayor,
Yep.
Lucas was on the council at the time, and I would ask Lucas, as
Yeah.
my term was coming to an end, what do you think? Because
Yeah.
I knew he had interest in the job,
Yeah.
and I said, what do you think, Lucas? You want to step up? I don't have to run
Yeah.
again. And it wasn't the right time for him.
Mhm.
He was a good mayor. It just wasn't the right time for him then. So, yeah, it's something that I struggle with because you don't want to, for lack of a better word, you don't want to be a pig. You don't want you don't want to hog the job, especially at the local level. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, term issues, I'm all over that. Um, so, how would you fix the U.S. education system to make sure that every student gets the same opportunities, no matter where they live, what town, what city, what part of town?
Well, one big factor of that is making community college free, more community college free. For let's say kids that didn't grow up in like a great home, or maybe just can't afford college. Making community college free is a great way to still have your kid go to the whole college thing
Hmm.
and get a good education without having to pay for it.
Great, great answer. And what steps would you take to lower the cost of living while still keeping the economy strong?
Um, well, there is what President Trump is doing, the tariffs, which I think short run it is going to make everything more expensive. But I think long run it will even out and everything the cost of everything will go down as more people build factories in the United States, creating more jobs.
Hmm.
I just love that idea. So yeah, tariffs are great for that.
Have you done a lot of reading on trade wars, tariffs?
I have a little bit, not a
Hmm.
ton so far, but I am kind of familiar with it.
I mean, generally, my opinion is generally short term they don't work out.
Yeah,
They inflict a lot of uncertainty,
yeah, yeah.
a lot of damage economically.
Yep.
Long term, interestingly,
Yeah,
they do tend to work out.
yeah.
The question with these is whether how much damage these tariffs are going to inflict,
Hmm.
short term, and that's something I think about a lot because I believe right now I think our
Yeah,
economy is very fragile. Our
yeah.
economy is driven by consumer confidence, and right now not just because of the tariffs, but because of a lot of things,
Hmm.
people are a little nervous
Oh
right
yeah,
now. And I think it's going to reflect in consumer confidence. We're
yeah,
already seeing it in the housing market.
yeah.
Um, so, should the government, we talked a little bit about freedom of speech, but should the government have the power to just ban or limit certain technology, AI, social media,
That kind of
if
goes,
in the opinion of the
yeah.
government, they become potentially dangerous?
That kind of goes back to the whole. Just one example, the TikTok thing. They
Hmm.
tried to ban that, but majority of, like I said, TikTok users are children. So I don't think that people are gonna do much with kids' data. It's about the adults that matters, I believe.
Hmm. Um, so this is obviously, you experienced the pandemic. We all did.
Yep.
Um, so what would you do differently, or what would you do, or what would you do differently if another pandemic happened to occur?
If I am correct, I believe the pandemic happened at the very end of Trump's term, right? So I want to have everything because I know there was a lot of kind of like closed doors happening, and not everyone was being fully transparent with what was happening. So I want to keep everything like fully out in the open and be like put it down to brass tacks. Like this is what's happening. This is gonna what's happened, and just lay it all out for people and have everything be very predictable for them. 'Cause I
How
don't
do you
want,
think Governor Scott did during the pandemic?
you know, um, pretty good. Like I said, there was definitely not enough like that much of communication.
Hmm.
So there could definitely be more communication with the people of what's happening.
Well,
But
he did his weekly press conferences.
yeah, he did that. But I think there can always be you can always be better. Can
Absolutely.
always be improvement. Always room for improvement.
Absolutely. So you're 25 years or so out from
Yeah.
running.
Yep.
Um, I guess I'm out, but have you picked a vice president yet?
We were thinking about that. I had a lot of offers from people that I know personally, but I do want someone who is very who's definitely experienced. You know who Charlie Kirk is? Are you familiar with Charlie Kirk?
Do not.
Um, well, you could definitely. I'm reading one of his books right now. He definitely would be a great pick for me. I don't know if he'd be open to it. Charlie Kirk, you should hit me up. But if he was open to it, I would definitely take Charlie Kirk.
Okay, so
He'd be a good VP.
I, yeah, but 25 years from now, dude, I'd be 80. I'd be 89 years old.
Probably younger than
I'd
some
be
of our
like,
people. Well, Joe Biden was thinking about running again, so anything could happen.
well, absolutely. So,
Yeah,
but I don't think you'd want an 89-year-old vice president. Maybe
yeah.
I'd be like, I'll tell you what. If I'm still around, I'll be a member of the
Hmm.
kitchen cabinet.
Okay.
The guys who come
I'll
over.
let you sleep in
You
the
know,
women's bedroom.
the guys who come over after guys who come to the White House
Hmm.
at like 6, 7 o'clock at night
Hmm.
after dinner time and just sit with the president
Yeah.
and chat with him and give him a little bit of advice.
Oh yeah.
So I'll be a member of the kitchen cabinet.
All right.
Um, so, are there any current politicians, or what about current politicians inspires you,
Ooh.
or in fairness, makes you say, "I won't do that."
Well, I will say one of the best qualities of the current president, Donald Trump, is his ability to just give speeches and go for long periods of time without having that much information. Like I said, when they killed the leader of ISIS, he came out of the Situation Room and he gave like an hour and a half long speech, and so just like that alone is very impressive,
Hmm.
just by his speech giving abilities and all of the rallies he had. Like I know people like Kamala Harris, she had a lot of her stuff scripted,
Hmm.
but just the ability to just speak freely and like just that is very impressive to me.
Nice. So, what are your new policies?
New
What's something
policies.
from you that we haven't necessarily heard or
Ooh.
seen before?
One of the main ones is I have two new main ones right now. First of all is getting rid of squatters' rights. Um, and the second one is flat taxes instead of the way they're doing it right now with the brackets.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on those?
Um, and again, as someone who works with the tax code every
Yeah.
single day, it's broken. I
Mm,
mean, it's complicated.
yeah.
When most people can't do their own taxes,
Yeah.
taxes should be
It should be
simple.
doable.
I think Canada's GSA, their general sales tax,
Yeah.
is kind of an interesting idea where you pay your tax at the point of consumption,
Yeah.
and the more you consume, the more you pay,
Yeah.
and it would be a higher tax. So, yeah, I've read, I guess, during my career as a public accountant, I've read so much legislation, and there are always so many loopholes and so many
Oh yeah.
exceptions. It's like I said, it's virtually impossible for people to do their own taxes. So I think they could make it much less complex,
Oh yeah.
and they should. Um, so what can we expect from you in the future?
In the future, a lot more interviews. Hopefully more. Yeah, just a lot more interviews, and definitely eventually, hopefully presidency. You know, but
I think
that's long. That's a long way down the road. But yeah,
I think that's cool. I really do.
yeah,
It's refreshing to see someone and talk to someone who kind of knows what they want.
yeah,
And life is funny. You never know where life is going to take you.
yeah. Who knows what's actually gonna happen?
But I think it. But I think it's. I think the greatest part of it is that, honestly, Seth, that you think about the issues,
Yeah,
because there's so many important issues. Whether it's homelessness, whether it's our economy, the state of our citizens, how well people are doing, whether the playing field is really level.
yeah,
One of my favorite phrases, George Bush, "the promise of America," and I always loved it when he talked about the promise of America, and I believe in that.
mm,
I mean, to think that I grew up here in Barrie
yeah,
and have had a wonderful, an incredible career, still having a lot of fun, and have a happy life. And everyone deserves that. Well, I shouldn't say everyone deserves that. What I
Yeah,
firmly believe is everybody deserves a shot.
everyone deserves at least one chance, two
Yep,
chances, and definitely everybody deserves to be happy in their life.
absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It was really a pleasure meeting you. It
Yeah, it
was
really
an
was meeting
honor to
you.
be able to interview you and spend a little time with you.
Yeah.
If you've got any pointers for me, we've got a lot of work to do here in Barrie.
Oh
I,
yeah.
I haven't even been off in this term. I haven't been in office a year yet,
Mhm.
and we've got some incredible opportunities. My biggest concern, and people ask me what I think about every day. What I think about every day is balance. You talked about that
Yep.
a little bit with the military
Yeah.
and with so many other things, and it's important, for government to have balance.
Oh yeah.
Um, could we make every street smooth? We could,
Could,
but
but
we'd have to cut half of our police force,
mhm.
and we'd have to cut out half of our fire department.
Mhm.
I don't think people would be happy with that.
Mhm.
So you're always trying to strike
Yeah.
that balance where, honestly, where people aren't too mad at you.
Yeah.
They're just mad enough.
Just not enough. Just over the point. Yeah.
Thanks
Yeah.
again,
Thank you
man.
so much.
It was a
It's
pleasure.
very fun.